Hi, and welcome to the ZP FoodSense weekly webinar. So we like to do this weekly webinar. It's really just addressing kind of technical questions or inquiries that have come in during the week. And this certainly won't be all talk. I've got a very busy sort of setup in front of me. I've got whole chilies. I've got a fairly hot sauce, and I've got a mild sauce. So with this mild sauce, people think, outside of, let's say, the artisan sauce production, they think that this is hot. But when you start comparing it to stuff like this, it's certainly not hot. With that said, I'll jump straight into it and do some demonstrations now, let's see. Just before I go in, I just want to give a few notes. The thing is, with the hot sauce, with this kind of viscous hot sauce, what you will find is that you can't pipette this kind of stuff. It's too thick, and I'll pour it out in a minute. So in fact, what I've done is I've weighed 0.01 grams. 0.01 grams is 10 milligrams, and I put 10 milligrams into 1 mil of buffer. So that's effectively like a 1 in 100 dilution. So I just want to kind of say that I have done that. And it's actually amazing. Well, not amazing, but I've got that sample in front of me, and I'll show it to you. And then it's also worth saying I've also got some chilies in front of me as well, and I'll sort of I'll chop these up and do a bit of a sample prep and a bit of a demo on that. But also to set the tone, I just want to kind of show what the mild sauce looks like, and then show actually what these kind of hotter products look like as well, so you can get a kind of sense of a kind of I don't know, an escalation in hotness. With that said, then let me go on to doing the actual testing itself. So in front of me, we'll start off with the easiest thing. Now it's easy because actually it's quite, let's say, liquidy, if that's such a term. So it's quite easy to kind of prepare this kind of sample. So I can just put that in like that. Quite straightforward. So I'm going to go quite fast because, I know that this kind of, I want to get to the kind of bits that are relevant to the people making the inquiries, but it does help to kind of build the understanding if I kind of go through these things fairly quickly. So I'll just take 100 mils of this. Sorry, not 100 mils, 100 microliters of this. And what am I saying here? Because it's quite thin, I can actually pipette this quite readily. And it's kind of interesting actually, because you'll see that this has got quite a lot of colour to it, but you'll notice that really colour is not an indicator necessarily of hotness. You'll see me do some quite high dilutions and get quite intense signals, and these won't be necessarily all orangey in colour. I'm just grabbing some pipettes here because I'm essentially preparing this one live, just to give you a quick sense of things. You can hear me kind of grabbing things off shelves. It's because I am. And I'm just going to grab some buffer, which I am doing now. And I will put the buffer in like this. Whoops, a daisy. Right, I've done that. I've got the sample prepared. I'm just going to give it a quick vortex. Now this is quite it's easy to mix this material because in fact it's quite liquidy in itself, so kind of mixing liquid with buffer is is fairly, let's say, straightforward. So I'm just vortexing it up now. What I'm doing, I'm just getting a clean pipette tip on this, and in fact what I'll do is I'll just take the sensor off the FoodSense Generation 4 here. I'll put that to the side. I'll just move those out of the way. I'll come back to those in a bit. I do have, so effectively I control this system through an app on my phone. So I'm just going to give this a name, and I'm just going to call it Tab. I'll call it Tab 101 or something like that. That'll help me find it in a minute. Right, so I call it Tab 101, that's fine. I've got a pipette here. I'm just going to get a sample now. I only need 50 microliters. So I think I've done that, but I need to put a sensor onto here. Putting the sensor in is quite straightforward. Click that up, done. 50 microliters on. Right, and so I've got that on like that, and then I will just go continue. I'm just going to choose an option here, which is, because this is quite mild, I only did what's called a 1 in 10 dilution. There's all sorts of options. The hotter the product, the more dilution we have to do. This is because capsaicin is not a terribly soluble compound, but I only did a 1 in 10. I hit start. Whoops a daisy. Continue, start measurement, and off it goes. Okay, so that's grabbing data, let's say in real time. Now we have designed the testing to be fast. Nobody likes hanging around. So that is something that we've designed it to be quick. So what it does is it runs the assay, and then it processes the data, and you'll get a result there and then on your phone. Now I also have in front of me, in fact I've got some hot sauce here. I'm trying to be really careful because with all these hot sauces you can end up, how do I say this? You can end up getting capsaicin over your fingers, and before you know it, you're kind of rubbing capsaicin into your eyes, etc. like that. But this material is actually quite viscous. So let me just put a little bit into here, which I am doing. Right, I'll come back to this one shortly. Now this is a lot more viscous. So that means when it's viscous like that, you have to actually weigh it out. But first of all, I just want to go back and say the result arrived on my phone. So I've got a result on my phone, and it says Scoville heat units 2330. Now what I want to do is I just want to show you my screen for a second. So let me just go to my screen. This is a really important part of the transparency of the system. Then in fact, all the data gets saved up to the cloud. So I can see my tab 101, which is the result that I just measured. I can see some nice strong signals. We definitely do talk about the science of what we're doing, but tonight I'm just going to kind of show you, look, anyone, who's not, all human beings have got good pattern recognition. You can see a very strong pattern here. I've got what we call a peak 1, peak 2, and a peak 3. These are the peaks for capsaicin, and you can see the peak as we analyze it here. So when I say on the phone, 2330, you can see it's got rounded up, but here you can see the actual result. You can see the time and date. If you so wish to download a report, you can export a test report, and that will actually do a PDF of that, so you can kind of have a certificate, let's say, of analysis on that. So I can just open that up like that. So then I'll go back and dive into what we're actually talking about. So I got all the test results, let's say, there as well. So what's good about this is I prepared the sample. It's only a mild sauce, so I only did a 1 in 10 dilution. I can definitely see this is capsaicin, peak 1, peak 2, and peak 3. I've got all the results saved. I've got the raw data saved. I've got the time and date saved. I can export as a PDF. So it really gives you a kind of good transparency, good traceability on actually what we did. It's not just this result on the phone. Then I was actually changing direction slightly, because then I was talking about with this hotter sample, it's more viscous. At which point now you can't pipette this kind of material. You do have to weigh out, on a sort of on a balance like this. Now in this particular case, I'm just thinking aloud slightly. Slightly at the moment, because I realized when I was preparing this one, which was the mild guy, I was using, I actually weighed out or measured out, 0.1 milliliters and put it into 0.9 milliliters of buffer. So 0.1 milliliters in 0.9 milliliters. That's 1 in 10. With something like this, I know it's hot. And with this kind of sauce, these kind of artisan hot sauces, you have to do something more like a 1 in 100 dilution. So in fact, with that kind of thing, you do have to weigh out the sauce. This kind of balance that I'm using is, actually I should do it that way. So I'm just tapping it on it, not trying to get right. So I've definitely overshot it there. But what I want to do is, what I want to say is to speed things up a little bit. I've actually prepared a sample of this particular guy, and I've got it here. Now, when I hold this sample up, what I might do is just change my camera slightly to kind of emphasize how much dilution I've really done on this. So this is the solution. Sitting at the bottom here, that literally is particles from the sauce. So you can appreciate how much dilution I've really done here. I've put, with this hot guy, I've put 10 milligrams, that's 0.01 grams in 1 mil of buffer. So I've effectively done a 1 in 100 dilution. I just want to emphasize that when we're doing work like this, and I'm going to the wrong camera here, I've actually got a vortexer. Now these vortexers, you absolutely can get these vortexers off Amazon. They're not super expensive, so don't think that this is some sort of high grade scientific instrument, but they are quite useful. This one is from OmniLab. I have no sort of connection with OmniLab, but it's quite a low cost but a good vortexer. It's got quite a weight to it. The weight really helps hold it on the bench. So this is my 1 in 100 dilution. Now the reason that this is important is because I'm going to put a fresh sensor onto here now, and I'll actually do some testing here. Now if I take the, let me just do this for a second. If I take a clean pipette and I put on 50 microliters onto that, remember the 1 in 100, and we'll have a look at the data on this as well. So I've got my sample, it's 1 in 100 dilution. I'll show you an example in a minute where actually you can, if you don't dilute enough, the instrument will definitely tell you that you haven't diluted enough. So now I'll take this hot sauce, put it onto there. I've done that. I'll just change my camera back so you can see that. I can see it's gone a bit blurry and it's not focusing correctly. But I have put a sample effectively onto the tip here. Now what I'll do is I will bring my phone up. I'll go down on that one. I'm just going to call this hot 101 so I can find it in a minute. I'll go back. Now I'm going to go to continue, but I'm going to make sure that I choose 1 in 100 dilution. Right, and then I start measurement now. Right, and then now that is, whoopsie daisy, that is, I've made a mistake. I can see that this has gone flatline. I didn't click that up, so I'll just let it run, but I didn't click that up. So let me just click that up. Now that's made electrical connection. Now I'll run it. It says, by the way, to dilute, because I basically didn't make electrical connection with it. So trying to do so many things in parallel. I'll choose the 1 in 100. Right. And when you've used this instrument a few times, you can, yeah, I can definitely see it now running now. I can definitely see that now running. And I can see it's actually quite intense as well. But I'll show you the raw data in a minute. It actually come back and said, actually too high. You must actually dilute more. So it's actually said, no, this is actually quite hot. And it says too high, dilute more. Now remember, when I tested this guy, I did 1 in 10. I've actually diluted this one 1 in 100. and it says actually too hot, dilute more. Now let me just go and share my screen with you, which I will do here. And if I go to reports, I'll just do a refresh here, and I can see that I can see the data here. Oh, that's the one where I didn't close the instrument up properly. And then I can, wow, yeah, look at this. Look how intense these peaks really are. So this actually needs to be diluted even more so. So I'm not going to report that because the machine said, no, you need to dilute this more. But just get a sense of those peaks, how big and, let's say, obvious they are. Now what I want to do is actually just show you what that milder sauce looked like. Don't forget, this milder sauce was actually diluted only 10 times. So do understand the difference between these two products, that, you know, this was diluted 1 in 10. I can see the peak height here is about 3. This one was diluted 1 in 100. And look at the peak, it's all the way up here. Now, I want to do this kind of, well, in fact, what I might do now is take my 1 in 100 sauce. Yeah, sauce. I'm just thinking aloud. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a further 1 in 10 dilution on that. So I'm going to take the fact that I've diluted this sauce 1 in 100, but the instrument has said, no, that's too intense. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take 100 microliters of it, and I'm going to dilute it. I'm going to dilute it a factor of 10. So let me just do that. So I'm putting it into here. I'm going to get some buffer, and I'm going to do a 1 in 10 dilution. So now 1 in 100 is becoming 1 in 1000. Now this is a bit spontaneous, so but let me do it. Right. Now, I am preparing things quite quickly. I'd like to take a bit more time, let's say, in really preparing this. But as it said, this is the way I'm doing it. I'm just going to reach across and vortex it. But to be honest with you, it's so transparent that I really don't need to vortex that much. I'll take that sensor off. Put a clean sensor on this. Now remember, I'm actually at a 1 in 1000 dilution at this point. But remember, the machine did guide me to this. Now I'm going to put a clean pipette tip on. I'll put 50 microliters onto that, which I will do. And now when you're doing this kind of stuff fast, you've got to try and kind of keep track of what you've actually done. But here goes the sample. I will go done. I'm just going to change the name here to just to remind me that, you know, so I can I can find this data in a short while. So I'll just give it a quick name, 1 in 1000, so I can just basically find that and show it to you. Right, continue. I'm going to make sure now that I don't choose 1 in 100. I choose 1 in 1000 because that's the dilution that I'm doing. And I hit start and off it goes. So the instrument is running away now, and I'll put that down like that. When it's finished running, it will upload it, and I've got a result of I'll change my screen slightly just so you can kind of see that what that actually says. So this has been diluted 1,000 times, and it's saying 72,800 Scoville heat units. Now what I find is, this is my, you know, this is I've definitely done over 1,000 tests doing this kind of stuff. Things like are commercially available actually are quite mild. These kind of artisan sauces that people are blending, these are really quite hot. So I'm not surprised that this has actually come out at like 2,000, and this guy is coming out at like 72,000. You know, it's 30 times, 35 times more intense than this. But this is because, you know, they're trading this into supermarkets. You know, they've got to be a certain cautiousness about it. People are buying this for the intensity of the heat. So it is intense and it is hot. Now, I've diluted it 1 in 1000. So let's just go back to my screen here. Because the nice thing about this is there's always the You know, this is what it looked like when I did the 1 in 100 dilution. And I could see it was intense because I could actually see it flatlined here on the machine. And that's why the machine said, no, you need to dilute this a bit more. So let's just do a quick refresh here. And I'm going to start coughing in a minute because there's so much capsaicin in the air that it's getting to the back of my throat. So now I can see that 1 in 1000 data here. I'll pull this in and I can see my signal. Now this is really cool. See, so I can see my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3 capsaicin. There's my signal. Now look at that signal, right? Because I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the mild source that I was doing earlier on. Here it is. So here's the mild source, but this was only a 1 in 10 dilution. You know, and it looks pretty similar actually. And this is 1 in 1000 dilution. So this has been diluted 1,000 times. So you could appreciate how much more intense, let's say, the artisan sources are relative to, and it's no criticism of, you know, the Tabasco company, or the McKinney company rather, that makes this. It's no criticism. It's just, you know, they're making different products for different audiences, different markets. But it just shows you the intensity of heat. Now what I'm going to do is demonstrate the versatility of this instrument by just kind of walking you through the preparation or the testing of chilies. So it's a bit of a mess here, so I'm going to have to pull some things out of the way and just kind of bring in and just give you a quick sense of that we can actually deal with quite complex samples like this as well. So you don't need, other than the FoodSense Generation 4 itself, you don't necessarily need a lot of equipment. I've got an at-home Ninja blender. I again bought this off Amazon, and I've chopped something up earlier on just to kind of but all I've done really with these is I've taken the green stalks off them because I know that there's no capsaicin in them. Other than that, then I'm just putting them in there, and now I'm going to really have to be careful because you can see that I actually don't have, you know, any gloves on, let's say, because it's going to affect my dexterity when trying to do this. But I put them in there like that. I put the machine on like that. Now I might do that for quite some time, but that's really all the kind of blending I want, or all I need. But you can see it's quite finely chopped. It's not hand chopped. It's definitely sort of blended up. Now with chilies like that, I know that we're going to have to do quite a lot of dilution to test them. So I'm going to pull this out of the way. Now what I've done earlier on is I've actually prepared a 1 in 100 dilution of those chilies. You can see them kind of down the bottom there. I weighed out probably about 0.01 grams. That's 10 milligrams, and put it in 1 ml of buffer. Again, I think the vortexer is important because it really helps. I actually did this vortexing for 60 seconds to, you know, because the vortex is vibrating so quickly that it really helps with the extraction. So you can see my sample here. I'm kind of making this point earlier on that, sorry, I have to cover this up. It doesn't need to be an intense color in that. That's not exactly an intense color. But what I want to do is I just want to, and I am going to have to cough. I'm going to take that sensor off. I'm going to put it to the side. I'm going to put a fresh sensor on there. I'm going to bring my phone in a minute, and I'm going to have to cough again. And I'm going to go done on that, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to say fresh chilies. I'll just call them chilies, actually it's easier to type. Chilies. And I've only done a 1 in 100 dilution, so I'm just going to put that into the name. I'm almost ready to go. I just need to get a quick pipette tip, which I am doing. And I will pipette this onto the sample. Which I am doing, and I will go continue. Remember, this is 1 in 100 dilution I've done so far. So I chose the 1 in 100 option. I start the measurement, and off it goes. And I'm just watching the kind of raw signal come, but it'll do the same thing. It will grab a raw signal, it'll process the data, it'll give me, give me a Scoville heat unit, which is done. And it's given me 31,300, and I can go and check that. And my apologies, I'm coughing a bit here. By going to my screen here, which I'm doing, I can come up to here, and I can do a quick refresh here. I can see my example here, and I can see my signal here, and I've also got my results saved, my raw signal saved, the operator, the time and the date. And if I again want to export, and I'll call this Chillies, I can export this and kind of keep that for my essentially as my I can also add a signature to it as well. I keep that as my kind of record that I actually essentially did the test. And I realized that, oh yeah, good, it is sharing as well. Okay, so in summary, tonight I have tested a mild sauce, super easy, it's very thin, easy to pipette. A more viscous sauce. With these kind of sauces, you have to weigh them out, and you will require a higher dilution. If you don't do the correct, and don't forget, I actually did do a higher dilution on that. And I've also tested some fresh chilies as well, which I just grinded in a food blender, weighed out the right mass, did a dilution in the buffer, vortexed it, and tested that as well. So I just want to kind of finish with to say that if you do have any questions regarding FoodSense Generation 4, I would say don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we do these videos or these webinars once a week, and it's just really answering technical questions that have come in during the week and giving client support, etc. Okay, thanks very much.